Afternoon to you. I believe you have Dlamini joining you, but before you talk to her, quickly take us through the rest of what the afternoon looks like at the conference.
Well, Pearl, we were expecting just very shortly at about 3 o'clock this afternoon a briefing from Jeff Radebe on the National Development Plan. That's certainly something that we're all waiting to see on what the ANC will say regarding some of the policies relating to the National Development Plan. But the commissions started today, of course, including on that organisational report that was presented by the Secretary-General of the ANC, Gwede Mantashe, as well. But one of the critical issues I think that we'd want to speak about is, you know that the ANC has made quite significant strides when it comes to the propelling, if I may, of women in government, and a lot has been said as well about, how it still lacks the representation of women in key leadership positions, in particular in the public and the private sector. I'm going to chat now to the president of the ANC Women's League, Dlamini. Thank you very much for your time this afternoon. You know, the African National Congress, we can certainly say, has made significant strides when it comes to putting women in key positions in government. But the ANC Women's League, I would not say has been satisfied. And of course, more can be done to put women in key positions in the governing party and within government as well.
We have taken a decision that, firstly, the ANC must resuscitate the committee that was started by our President, Oliver Tambo, Committee on the Emancipation of Women, because that committee does not only speak to the issues of women's representation, it speaks to the issues of violence against women, it speaks to the issues of women's empowerment, ensuring that women are respected in the community, that are equal to men, and that they can perform any other duty. And that was based on the fact that as far as back as Charlotte Mkhize, we had women that were graduates that even contributed to the formation of the ANC. We have women like Lillian Ngoyi, Helen Joseph, Rahima Musa, that were quite sophisticated, that understood the politics of the ANC. And therefore, this is not a present. It is because of the struggles of our women. And then, secondly, if the ANC has a committee on the emancipation of women, as the leader of the society, people are going to listen to the ANC. If, for instance, it pronounces on the issues of violence against women and children, but also it is going to give a strong leadership to the leadership of the ANC and members of the ANC and those issues, so that they are not seen as violating the rights of women.
There could be other issues that could be spoken to as well when you look at the public and the private sector as well. Women always seem to find themselves at the bottom of the barrel when it comes to leadership positions. At some point you reach the ceiling. Perhaps some could argue even in journalism that is the case. What policies would you, as the ANC Women's League, be pushing for to ensure that the African National Congress ensures that some of the rules that are meant, that don't apply to women, and there's a yardstick perhaps that is measured against men, all of that is done away with? I mean, if we look at how far we've come in terms of democracy, women still find themselves at the bottom of that ladder.
South Africa generally is a patriarchal country, and therefore you need to mobilize the society to understand the issues of women. But also we need to come up with legislation that will give direction in terms of the private sector as well as the public sector. And one other important issue is that when women are put in highest decision-making bodies, they must not be treated as if they can't think, they can't strategize, they can't implement. Because most of the time is that when a woman is made a CEO, she does not finish the term of office, or that post is lowered, the package or remuneration is lowered. You see a group of men surrounding her because there is an assumption that women cannot perform their duties. Why? Because at all times men do not want to listen to the leadership of women.
Just before we run out of time, Mamu Batabile Dlamini, I want to touch on the issue of you coming to this policy conference at a very unfortunate time in South Africa, where over the past couple of months, the images of women have been spread across television networks, not just in the country, but also beamed around the world. And the image of South Africa certainly indicates one that doesn't respect its women. Every 8 hours, a woman is killed by an intimate partner in this country. One would argue and say that the current legislation that is in place, put there by the governing party, is not harsh enough on those who perpetrate violence against women and children.
Firstly, the coordination. We have more than 58 structures in the country that are dealing with issues of violence against women and children.
That on its own, Mamu Batabile, says that we have a very big problem.
Yes,
absolutely.
Because you can't have so many structures that are not well coordinated. The legislation, we have to close gaps that are in the legislation. But also, we can't work in silos. The decisions also by the judiciary, I think, do not favor women. Because we always lose our cases. But why we lose our cases? It's because of the unpreparedness of our system to take through a woman who has been raped from that period up until the end. We lose women within cracks because we don't have a process that takes you and builds confidence in you so that you can be able to go and be firm and be strong and fight for yourself.
I'm really going to try and get through as much as I can in this interview, but are you hopeful that perhaps after this policy conference, those gaps that you've just highlighted will be able to be closed? Because a clear indication that there is a long existing problem in South Africa in the manner in which it treats its women and children. And just on the other issue as well, we also understand that the ANC Women's League, some in the ANC Women's League, are pushing for the death penalty when it comes to issues relating to, as a result of the current scourge of violence against women and children. If you could just speak to us a bit about that on some of these calling for the death penalty to return.
Okay. Our experiences as members of the Women's League are not the same. Young women generally are very angry about what is going on. And they think they are not treated fairly, and government is not harsh on those that kill our young people. They have called for death penalty, not only young women in the ANC Women's League. And we've been trying to say, let's strengthen policy and have monitoring. Because
are you in support of that as the president of the ANC Women's League?
What we are saying is that once you give, because it is the state that is going to kill. Once the state begins killing people, our experience says it should maybe start with 3, 4, 5 people that raped or have violated the rights of women. But next time when something happens, people will die, and we will go back to our experience. We have the experience of this. But what is important is that we have to listen to young women and also listen to the society, hear about its preparedness to fight violence against women and children.
So finally, are you in support of that as the president of the ANC Women's League?
I think what is important here is that I lead an organization. My feelings come after what women said. We've raised the issue that we must look at the issue in a balanced, manner.
Way. Unfortunately, that's all we have time for. Thank you very much, the President of the ANC Women's League, Batabile Dlamini, just expressing, of course, some concerns about the scourge of violence against women and children in the country, certainly casting a very bad image of the country, not just in South Africa, but around the world as well, with the number of women, the scourge of violence against women and children really thrust into the spotlight as well. You recall, of course, just yesterday, one of the accused in one of these issues that was really highlighted in a similar matter of Karabo Mokoena was denied bail just yesterday. So legislation is also something that will play a very critical part when it comes to dealing very harshly with those who abuse women and children. Let me join now the Treasurer General of the African National Congress, Mkhize. Thank you very much for your time, Mr. Mkhize. Very interesting 2 days that we've had at the ANC Policy Conference. And are you satisfied with what has emerged thus far?
So far, we are quite satisfied. You will realize that for most of the time up to now, we've just been tabling the documents. And so what we are finding is that the mood is very good. There's vibrancy, there's a lot of enthusiasm, and there's a good conduct and behavior of all of those delegates. At the moment, we have not had to call anybody to order and stop, the conference because of disruption. We don't have that. We've not had people who have had to be thrown out of the conference because of misconduct. We've also not had to discipline anybody. So that's good. We've actually at this moment tabled all the documents that are necessary to do the diagnosis of what needs to be fixed inside the organization, and the discussions have started.
I'm not inside this policy conference. We're just parked outside here. But I would basically gauge a sense, perhaps, that it may not all be too rosy, in particular when you touch on some of the major issues that are facing the African National Congress. If you look at issues of state capture, which the Secretary General of the party was very vocal about yesterday, and how a Judicial Commission of Inquiry needs to be established quite soon, how would you gauge the mood of delegates were on issues relating to corruption and some of the issues that the Secretary General himself said has led to a massive decline in voter support because of the shenanigans inside the African National Congress?
What you must take into account is that all the issues that the Secretary General raised and what the President raised actually come from the members of the ANC. They come from the structures of the ANC, and as a result, therefore, people who were here wanted to hear if the leadership is aware of all of these issues, and therefore once they feel that those issues are acknowledged as being present, then we're opening up a platform for them to go and discuss those issues. What you are picking up is the eagerness to get involved in the issues. There are obviously lots of differences in terms of these views, because you will not find one or two, we will not find two branches, two delegates agreeing necessarily on the same on one issue. So you are going to find diversity of views, but that's what the conference is about. Bring out all of those views, discuss them thoroughly until you are able to get an approach that's going to help solve the problem. So from now on, we're going to have the discussion until tomorrow. We've broken down the whole conference into 11 groups of about 300 and 350 people each. That maximizes participation. And in that process, we want solutions. And we've actually identified the issues, and we're saying, here are the proposals. What do you think of them? What are the issues that are omitted here? Let's solve the problems.
But how do you find those solutions? Because if, for example, you look at the elective conference of the ANC, which is just a stone's throw away, and many had said were quite sceptical in the run-up to this policy conference, saying that this perhaps would be used as a yardstick to measure who supports who come December. Let's leave it there. But how does the ANC emerge from the current factionalism, which has been acknowledged by the leadership of the African National Congress, and not die out? We have examples of that on the African continent, of liberation movements after the attainment of democracy or freedom fizzle out because of, some would say, they're no longer listening to the people. And that has been the ultimate cry And we saw that in the manner in which the ANC has performed in the last local government elections and the assertion that was made by the Secretary-General about how that support has been declining over the years.
I think we must be able to acknowledge that after we've looked at that matter, we had actually done our own surveys where we were able to pick up the issues that were of concern to our members and society in general. We've also gone to meet up with our structures and we've looked at these issues, and right now as we're tabling them, we've found that what is important is to table them openly and acknowledge them. I wouldn't know what happened in those particular organizations, but the real reason why we're taking 2 days to deal with this issue, we're basically saying we do not want the ANC to be destroyed by the weaknesses that have been identified. These delegates must be upfront. Now, as you will see, the delegates, they don't have any fear to express their views. They're not shy to tell anyone if they think there's something that they need to be told. So they're going to be very open, frank, they're going to be robust. They will actually start giving us proposals of what they think needs to be done to solve the problems. The mood, as I say, the mood is fairly good because it basically means that everyone who's there is ready to engage. It doesn't mean they're all agreed on everything.
I want to talk about that research just before we run out of time. During that press briefing that was given by the Secretary-General of the ANC, one of the questions I kept asking myself was that while that research was conducted and we speak about a decline in the voter support for the African National Congress, do you think perhaps voters very much relied or made their decisions on the basis of the issues that the ANC is facing and how they believed that certain decisions that were taken were not the right ones for the African National Congress, or for the person who finds himself at the center of, number one, the Gupta emails, who finds himself in the middle of allegations of state capture, which the ANC says needs to be dealt with now. It acknowledges that it has made a significant blow to the image of the African National Congress. Do you think perhaps voters made those decisions based on the challenges, the decisions that were made by certain individuals within the party, or the one person at the center, President Jacob Zuma?
It's a variety of issues. We haven't tabled all the issues that were mentioned as we went around talking to a number of people. These issues vary. There are those issues where people are concerned about the issue of the Concord, the issue of Kandla, but there are a lot more issues that are relating to separate matters. For example, the issue of unemployment is a big issue. The issue, for example, of corruption and crime were the big issue that arose in the context of our research. At the same time, there were specific issues around the way the ANC structures went about in the selection of candidates. You are aware of the tensions we had in Nelson Mandela. You are aware of the tensions we had in Swane. There was a lot of fighting that happened there. It was a few days before the elections when you saw all of those issues. Then there are issues where people relate to the, the manner in which the structures of the ANC selected candidates and how the councillors might have been serving. All of these issues are a package that we had to look at. It wasn't just one issue, it's a whole package of issues that we had to look into.
Unfortunately, that's all we have time for. Thank you very much for your time. Mkhize, who's the Treasurer General of the African National Congress, highlighting some of the key issues, of course, that the ANC itself would need to deal with, touching, of course, on one of the key issues that came up yesterday during that media briefing by the Secretary General of the party, Gwede Mantashe, talking about voter support and what led to the decline thereof. But here on SABC News, we'll also bring you live that press conference by Jeff Radebe on the National Development Plan. You can certainly stay tuned for that, and we'll bring you much more here from Nasrec on the second day of the ANC's National Policy Conference.